Hi, I'm Peachy.
Hello, I'm Patrick.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
And today we are joined by our guest. If you've not seen the other video where we have a quiz, it's Jordan Sorcery. Thank you for coming on, Jordan. Thank you for doing the quiz as well. Obviously, this is a separate chat. We've had a nice quiz. I won't tell you who won, spoilers. But really appreciate it. A lot of effort went into that. So a lot of our viewers might not know who you are. And if you don't, why don't you? Links in the description. Who is Jordan Sorcery? Because a lot of our viewers, we just go into conversations and stuff, and they like to know a bit about you. You know, what is your channel? What is the purpose of it? So if you could give us a brief sort of overview of the Jordan Sorcery channel.
Sure, yeah. Trying to really boil down the Jordan Sorcery experience into a couple of lines.
Well, we've got a whole hour to expand on it, but...
That sounds like a good album, the Jordan Sorcery experience.
Yeah, I've definitely started from a place of like sheer arrogance and hubris, and now I'm going to have to bring it down a little bit. But yeah, it's so I like to delve into the history of Games Workshop games and lore and the sort of behind the scenes stuff as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because I like sort of exploring, okay, how did all these games that we love come to be what they are today?
Yeah.
You know, who created them? What was the sort of environment they were working in? What was the business like when they first started? And then how did that evolve and change over time? Because so much of it did evolve and change over time to sort of get to where it is now.
See, you do it well because we're just lazy. We just get the people in who do it. I just get them to tell us how they did it.
We might have a quick read in a book beforehand and that's it.
But that's a super interesting part of it, though, as well. So I've been lucky enough to get a couple of interviews myself and sort of talk to some of these people who were there at the start and were involved and through the years. And getting their perspectives on it is so interesting because they don't always line up, or obviously we all sort of remember things slightly differently or didn't see the whole story. And everyone's been so generous with their sort of times and their recollections. But it's piecing it all together. I'm not a historian, but I like to think it's almost that kind of historian approach to trying to sort of say, okay, so it seems like this is what happened and this is why those decisions were made. But then this other interview or conversation or bit of history sort of gives a slightly different perspective on it. So maybe there was something else happening in the background.
Yep.
So trying to bring all of that together. It's not just Games Workshop stuff, but that's been a big love of my life from a hobby perspective. So that's where I tend to focus a lot of my time.
Yeah. So I stumbled across you a few months back now, and I started listening to it. I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." I think the first one because I love Mordheim, and I think you were discussing Mordheim at one point, and I was like, oh, "This is interesting." But what I really like is there's a lot of lore channels out there that talk about internal lore, and it's very sort of like about Space Marines and talking about Space Marines or talking about Necromunda or whatever. Whereas the stuff that you do is a bit of that, but also it's like you say who was working on the book at this time and what happened. And I'm always like, it's almost like you were there. And you're like, oh, no, I just did some research. I'm just like, yeah, I know, but the way you talk about it as if you were there experience, it's like a proper documentary of the years of all the different... Well, I know you've kept to mainly Warhammer Fantasy Battle at the moment,
mostly,
haven't you?
yeah.
Which is great, because that's a big love of mine. These obviously two big 40k fans.
So Warhammer what?
Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I'll introduce you to it later.
Yeah, it's a new game coming out next year.
Yeah, that's it. I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's
I've
called
heard
Old
of that
Hammer.
one. Yeah, which is weird because it's new. Like it's unreleased. How's it old?
It's mad.
Apparently the bases aren't round.
So, I mean, how did that... What happened? Just one day you just thought, you know what, I'm going to do this for the internet? Or was that something you were always interested in beforehand and you thought, I'm going to start putting this information onto a platform?
Yeah, I mean, it's I suppose it's probably not the most interesting story, really. But I'll see if I can spice it up with I'll drop some
explosions
lies in there. Or something.
Go Michael Bay.
But no, I was not having a great time at work. So I was, just doing my regular job. And I was looking for that sort of creative outlet. And I'd seen over the course of the pandemic and COVID, obviously loads of new channels. And I was watching YouTube a lot more. Some really exciting, interesting stuff that was just out there that people were talking about. And it kind of filled me with this desire to want to do something myself. And to sort of put something out there on YouTube. And I cannot paint, like pretty much at all. I'm really, really bad. And it's just never been the sort of big part of my hobby. So I obviously loads of channels focus in on that kind of stuff, And I enjoy that sort of stuff as well. I enjoy watching it, but I can't contribute that. I couldn't add that. So I was looking for something that I could add myself. And probably, besides the stories and the sort of narratives of Games Workshop games and other games as well, the big thing that I do is collect stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, how can I turn what I do and my version of the hobby into a channel? And it kind of felt like, well, if I can sort of then tell the story of the collection. So everything that was released over a period of time, when did it come out? Who did it? Where would you have found it? How did it relate to everything else? And kind of sort of, put that into the piece. And there's other channels that do similar stuff and have been a big inspiration to me. I mean, Arbitrarian and Sniper Wib and those guys are doing really, really fun stuff. So I was like, well, that's cool. Maybe I can sort of put my spin on that kind of thing and sort of bring it to life. And then I started doing the Warhammer Fantasy sort of making of series. And in my head, it was just going to be a really quick, I'll just run through all the editions, 8 editions, and I'll just go bang. First edition came out and they released this expansion. Second edition came out and they did this. And then it sort of started to expand as I researched it. And that's when it kind of turned into more of a documentary thing, I think. Yeah. And then it kind of grew arms and legs. And I got more and more into, can I tell the story of the creation of these games? And I don't know that I've got there yet, but that's the direction I'm trying to go.
I think you did a good job, because there's a lot of stuff when I've watched back, and certainly the early days stuff, I wasn't working for Workshop at that time, so it was really interesting hearing that side of it. And then as you get closer to things that are becoming more my era, when I was there, I'm being fascinated to see the insights of that as well. But like you say, you get a lot of the information from stuff you've read, and like White Dwarf's a great resource, because they used to do lots of interviews in White Dwarf, didn't they? So no, I think it's great. I think sugar. Sorry, just getting my tea in there. No, it's really interesting. It's like we try and get the human in the room, like you, and chat to them. And you're doing something similar with some of the greats from Workshop. Obviously remotely at the moment, but there's a few he's snagged that we've been trying to get hold of and we're not had yet. So, so well jealous of that.
Yeah, and I start my invitation to interview. I say, don't go on the painting phase. No, and here is why.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm very lucky to get some of that, and I think because I am doing it remotely, I'm just doing Zoom calls and just having a conversation, and it's a far more traditional ish interview, but I'm trying to not insert myself too much into that conversation. So I want to get their perspective and their recollections of it, and sort of give them room to tell their story of it. So it's for a very different purpose as well. I think it's trying to, because I approach it with like a load of questions that I have, and sometimes it's like, oh well, I'll just do this one for me. And I've got some questions because I'm curious about it, and then from that, hopefully get to, why did you do that? Why did it develop in that way? What was the sort of impetus for that decision, or what have you? And some of those conversations, I mean, all of those conversations really have been super interesting and really, really good. For me, at least, I've enjoyed them. And that's also now like a primary source that can go into my sort of documentary style videos, because I can refer back to my own conversation and sort of say, oh, well, here's what they said to me when we chatted. So that's been really nice to sort of explore that side of things as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about like the people you talk to, they all have different sort of memories of that era, because I have the same thing. Like I can be talking about stuff that I remember from like working at Workshop, and then we had like Tom Hibbard on, he'll be talking about stuff I was like, oh yeah, we did do that. I don't remember that happening. It'll be in the case, and then it suddenly like gets your creative mind going, and I remember, oh, then that was the reason why we did that, or whatever. But yeah, I've definitely spoken to a few buddies from Workshop, and they're like, are you sure you're remembering that bit right? I was like, I don't know, am I? Remind me, what do you remember? So it's quite interesting that people remember. It's certainly if you're in a team and you have that blinkered sort of focus on what you do, and then someone that works in another team and they have a blinkered focus on what they do, and your experiences are very different. That is quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, because it's rare that someone is involved in every part of the thing. I mean, luckily, I was able to talk to Mark Wells, who was the CEO, and he has a sort of top-down perspective on a period of time for Games Workshop history, and that was a great conversation. Or Alan Merritt, who was sort of this sort of fixer behind the scenes for a huge length of Games Workshop history. But even they were not in the room for everything and making all of the creative decisions and doing all of that sort of stuff. So you've got to sort of piece it together with a load of other stuff. And like you say, White Dwarf and other sources like that, there's so much information there, especially older white dwarves when they were just really happy to say, we're working on this, it's coming out soon. And they just like commit themselves to loads of stuff that never came out.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it's,
like our Necromunda campaign.
but yeah, because they were just like, obviously the design studio was this really exciting febrile place where everything's being created all the time. And they were just sticking it straight into White Dwarf saying, oh, these guys are working on this, these guys are working on that. And some of it just disappeared. Yeah. So there's lots of interesting stories there as well about like what didn't make it. But some of that, you know, we spent some time developing this and then it didn't turn into a game or a book or a comic or whatever on its own. But some of it found its way into some other product and it sort of became something else.
Is anything that they, because I've not watched every single episode, but is anything that like was mentioned that you're like, oh, I wish that was a thing now? Or...
Oh, loads. Yeah, loads. So, I mean, I'm working at the moment on a video about a Warhammer comic book that was being put together. And it sounded really, really cool. You know, they had editors together, writers, artists. It was really far along the line. So there's some art out there as well from it that just never made it into a proper comic book. And this is years before we would then see, you know, Warhammer Monthly and stuff like that. Yeah, so a completely different project from that. And it was then basically canned during the sort of changeover, the buyout, when the management bought Games Workshop. And the company really started to change at that point in time, so around the early 90s. It went from the Brian Ansell Citadel-led Games Workshop that he'd done since taking over from the original guys, Steve Jackson, Ian Livingston. The new version of Games Workshop that emerged in 91, it wasn't really interested in doing a lot of that kind of stuff. It moved away from books. It moved away from these sort of comic projects. Obviously, the record label that they were trying. All these kind of fun, like...
Oh, my God.
Bolt thrower.
It was Bolt thrower. And what was the other one? There was a couple, weren't there? There was a few.
Yeah, because it was... Realm of Chaos was the album, right? Now it's slipped my mind.
Yeah, Suggs would know. Suggs was there. She'd be able to riff them all off. Big fan.
We'll see if it comes back to me later on. But yeah, so they D-Rock.
D-Rock, yeah.
So they'd been working on all of these kind of like really creative outlets for let's just expand what Games Workshop does and expand the worlds in all these different ways. In some cases, because Brian Ansell was just, I'm well into that. I'd like to explore it. I'd love for there to be.
Gone as far as to do candles. That'd have been fun.
It'll never happen.
What madness would that be?
Yeah. What's Nurgle going to smell like? Yeah. A delight.
Well, you say this, right? And then now, surely one of the strongest like arms of Games Workshop's IP is Black Library. So they created this book line, GW Books. They did 17 books between 89 and 91, which is a huge amount of books to publish in such a short time. And then they just decided, well, actually, we're not going to do it. We're going to let Box Tree do it instead. And then that kind of died off. And then it was another however many years until you got Black Library. But they were doing stuff that would later become super successful, but it just wasn't the right time, really. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So that changing business at that point in time, it's an interesting story, I think, to try and unravel some of it.
I remember we used to have like national manager meetings. All the managers would come from wherever. Staff members would look after the stores. Everything was on fire when they weren't there. It was great. But we'd all get in a room and they'd like talk, and you have like people from the studios come in and talk about stuff. And I remember once, because everyone asked the question every year. We used to get customers asking us like, when's there going to be a 40k movie? When are we going to do like 40k films or this, that and the other? I remember a few of them just saying, we're never going to do that because we don't trust people with our IP. And it would never happen. It was like a firm sort of like line in the sand. This is never going to happen. And then like 10 years later, they've got computer games because Sega doing Total War. They've got like all these like Joy Toys and McFarlane figures. And,
Well, I'm playing Space Hulk on PS1.
Space Hulk, Final Liberation, classic games. There was Avatar of Kane or something like that, which was like a real-time strategy before like... I think it was because of Dawn of War. You know the trailer for Dawn of War?
Yeah.
That's what kicked people's like creative juices for like, we need to see a movie of this. I think that's what got people really into the idea of like seeing films and stuff.
Well, they made that movie, didn't it? It was awful.
They did, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple of things that obviously done on shoestring budgets, but they created like a gene stealer and an orc and like Space Marines.
They did that one where they had real actors wearing Space Marine armor, didn't they?
Yeah, I remember watching it at Games Day a year or two after it came out. Yeah, and they put it on the big screens and were just like, come on, watch Inquisitor, and you can sort of see it. And yeah, it is now looking back. It's all on YouTube, so you can go and watch it.
Yeah.
it's not great. But at the time, it was like, wow, this is the stuff I'm imagining, and now it's moving and talking and interacting.
At the time, it's all we had.
Yeah, and even at the time, it wasn't like you were like, wow, this is amazing, this is good as Aliens or something, but it was still something that was quite enjoyable. I felt, at least.
Yeah. It's interesting because was it the earnings report that came out recently for Workshop? They were like, we haven't made quite as much money as we thought we would because of like licensing and IP had reduced by like 10% or something like that.
Oh, right.
So it's like that is such a profitable part of the business now.
Yeah.
Which is wild. It's interesting how much that's changed since. No, never.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we're sorry guys, we haven't made 100 million quid. We've only made 99 million because of licensing.
It was interesting because they did a couple of, like I say, computer games beforehand. Because you had, if you remember, the fantasy one, Shadow of the Hornrat, Dark Omen. There was a 40k, pretty much epic 40k one, Final Liberation.
I remember playing Chaos Gate when I was younger.
Chaos Gate as well. That was the old XCOM engine.
Yeah.
They're like, come to Chaos, join us. I used to love just exploding the cultists with one shot from a bolter. But yeah, some of those did all right, some didn't do so well. And I think it was just like a firm line in the sand, like, no, we're not never doing it again because it costs us. I think people would take some of that and then put their own tweaks on it, which they didn't like and agree with because, you know, when you have an IP, you're very precious over it. So, but it's really nice to see that that's like chilled out a bit more. And
yeah, I think so. I mean, and this is the kind of... So I'm quite interested, as much as I love the worlds of Games Workshop and playing games in these worlds and telling stories and reading stories in them, I am also, for some reason, I'm interested in the business of it all. Yeah. And it's not... Because I think there's an interesting relationship between the sort of fantasy elements, the creative stuff, and the business side of things as well. That I think we sometimes don't... Because obviously we don't see it. So we just see what comes out, the products that are released and the games that come out and we can play and stuff. The way that the business evolves and changes informs so much of that creative stuff, but in ways that we probably wouldn't expect. And that's what I think has been the most interesting aspect of sort of delving into it.
Yeah. What does anything spring to mind as an example from like a conversation that you've had? Yeah,
well, I mean, so it's been described to me, and I think this is a really good... I can't take credit for this as a metaphor for it, but it makes perfect sense. So one of the designers was talking about how it's like Sudoku. So there are restrictions in what they can do because there's already some numbers in place. So you don't just have free reign to sort of create anything. And those restrictions might be, we can only produce this many models for that kit, or it can only be this big, or it can only, can only use this much plastic because it's going to cost a certain amount, or we've only got so many pages to print. Yeah. So these kind of like real hard business things then inform how the law is created to accommodate the product that they then produce.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
So it's not. Yeah. You it might feel like there's an opportunity to just like whole cloth create anything you want, which I guess in a sense is true, and maybe was truer at some point. But you were always dealing with like, well, what's the cost of lead? So how many pieces can we put into that kit? Or it doesn't come out of the mold if you sculpt it in that particular way, so we need to design it in a different way. Yeah. So like the slaughter base is probably a good example, where Brian Ansell was like, you can't have someone walking across the line of the tab, because then it made it harder to come out of the mold. So that's why you ended up with models that were all sort of hunched over and sort of at a different angle. So that's a mechanical decision, a design decision made because of a mechanical necessity, and I think that's so interesting, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Because we sort of look at it and just go, wow, this, all of these stories are amazing. It's so creative, and we get immersed in it and sort of love it. But sometimes you can peek behind the curtain and kind of go, oh, but actually there was just a business decision made that informed it. And for some people, I think that's probably like, well, I don't want to pollute the fantasy with these hard business metrics or whatever. That's not interesting. And yeah, absolutely, I can understand that. For me, there's an interesting little second story that runs alongside the fiction. Yeah.
It's like, you just reminded me, like taking like certain box sets, for instance. So like Silver Tower, Blackstone Fortress, Curse City, they're a set depth size. You take the Legio Imperialis stuff, that's a bit deeper. and certainly books and box games were like, measuring the boxes are a certain set size, certain height for like a certain cost of UPS packaging boxes, because if they went to the next size, it would cost more. So it's like, trying to minimize costs. So what can you fit into this size box set? Then like, printing, how much does it cost? Realizing if you're going to do a black interior, like Kill Team has a black interior, that's actual ink. So you're paying for that. So why not do like designs on the inside and make that inside become a piece of scenery as well? So it's all like stuff like that I just find really fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. And it's because then you get really creative decisions made to solve for that problem. I think. But even down to like Warhammer 4th edition, so the first sort of big box starter for Warhammer Fantasy, that was amazing. That brought me into the hobby. I'm sure it brought many people into the hobby. Just a fantastic starter set, and the design there from, I think it was from Tom Kirby, who was like, let's put everything in one box so that people can just buy one thing and start. But then that, obviously there's a load of restrictions in, well, how much stuff can we put in? So they put like cardboard versions of like a catapult or a griffin, so that you get the feel of a bigger army, but without having to put the extra plastic in there and stuff like that. But then that sort of story continues to evolve as they go from, we'll put everything that you need in there with all the cards and all the tokens and stuff, to, well, actually cards become more and more complex because now we're an international company. So printing the cards again in different languages becomes more costly. And also, some languages are longer, like the words are longer. German requires more letters. So printing the cards again means we're going to have to reformat everything, and maybe we can't use the same language and just translate it. We'll need to do something different. So there's a move away from cards. So that's why the magic system for Warhammer Fantasy went from card-based in like 4th and 5th edition into a dice-based one in 6th edition. So that's a huge mechanical change driven by the fact that the company became more international.
Yeah.
And so that like line is, I think, is so interesting.
Yeah, Warcry is a great example of that. I got it in. I knew I'd get Warcry in the first hour. I got it in.
Only took you 24 minutes?
Yes, yeah. So if you ever get the... I don't know if you ever played Warcry.
Sure, yeah.
So you get your fighter cards, and the fighter cards are just symbology. It's just lots of symbols with numbers on it. Numbers are universal. Whereas in the box, all you're doing is changing the book. You're getting a different book, a different language book, which then tells you what those symbols mean. So the only thing you really change is, so the cards are the same. The only difference is like when you get your ability cards, it's like a big wad because there's like all the different languages in there, from like Japanese to Russian to whatever European nation we're currently like, well, I keep saying we supplying to. But yes, it is. Like you say, the challenges I always find really interesting. Do you know why you get like a big piece of art inside your box games?
Was it to stop the book being scratched?
Yeah, from sprues. Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, just having that little piece you put down and then your sprues go on top of it.
Yeah.
Just like a simple thing like that, just to protect. Most people are just like, I've got a cool piece of art I could put on the wall.
And then it's always sod's law that the best side of the artwork has the barcode on it.
Yeah. What are you
We were
playing
talking about this when we opened the... When we opened the Templar box, didn't we? That the better of the two pieces of art was one with a big barcode in the middle of it.
Amazing. So, obviously, channel's doing really well. Good job. You're on like 12,000 now?
Yeah, we just went over 12k recently. Yeah.
The Mark Wells interview. Mark, if you have never spoken to him, he's a really lovely guy. I know that he was very obviously going in, not I say corporate mind, but he was talking about like how he manage the time and using some of the speaky wood because that's his field of expertise. But,
absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I had so many good interactions with Mark. It was just nice seeing him just getting the opportunity to chat and talk about his side of the stuff, because
that's the thing, I think. Yeah, and yeah, obviously and that's the point, is that he's coming from the perspective of being a CEO, making pure business decisions. And this is a company that's, it's an unusual company, right? Because it's creating widgets and like numbers, like any business, but those widgets and numbers are actually these like super creative products, like it's a game or miniatures or stories or whatever. So there's this unusual relationship. I came from like you might describe it as a dry corporate world. So I worked in a bank and like working on numbers that were just numbers. So the product we were making was just numbers, and you're moving them around all the time. Games Workshop's doing that, and it's got the same kind of structure, the same CEO, the same HR, all that sort of corporate structure, but then the product that's coming out of the bottom isn't just numbers, it's like toys and and worlds.
Fun.
Yeah, fun, basically.
Yeah, because no one puts a mythology on a Hoover, do they? You just release a new Hoover. You don't have to go. This Hoover was discovered by a bunch of rogue space marines. They had it reproduced.
I mean, Jeff, that's what they should do now.
Yeah,
then.
but you know,
They
that's
totally
isn't it?
should.
But, you know, because this is something Arbitorian said, didn't he? Which was really interesting, and it was the first time I really thought about it in that way. He said, "We're all sitting here talking about how much we love the stories and we love the books and all the rest of it, but what we're actually doing is saying how much we love marketing of toy soldiers."
Yeah.
And you know, but it is, and it's interesting. You think it's marketing that's just, but it just branches off into, you know, a whole other, avenues. Like, you know, going, I want to sell toy soldiers, but also Pat's got a 4-hour drive ahead of him.
Yeah.
And he's being told that toy soldiers with lightning bolts on and bat helmets are the coolest ones.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I listened to Eisenhorn Book 3 whilst I painted the spare room in my house.
You managed to get through the whole lot.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. I think it was like 10 hours or something like that.
How big's the spare room?
It was like a really dark blue.
We're using a fine detail again.
Yeah. It was like double zero, going around the skirting boards. So I was like, you know, I don't want to listen to music. I can't watch a video. I'm gonna listen to Black Library.
Can I just slightly sidetrack here? Did Karis think because you do painting as a hobby, that means you're an expert at painting walls? Did you get? Because I get that at home.
No. My dad, he was like, "Send me some updates, Patrick." That's in my head. That's like my dad voice. I can't wait to have kids. So I'll be like, right, well, here's the room now. Here it is.
Cool, yeah.
And he was like, oh, easier than toy soldiers. I'm like, well, yeah, but like a lot more boring.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
So then now in my head, I've just got Eisenhorn being like, I'm so close to the line, but have I already crossed it? Am I a heretic or am I just a radical? And I always think, like, if I listen to Eisenhorn books, I need to count how many times Dan Abnett writes body glove.
He loves his body gloves.
He loves his body gloves. Yeah.
That was the first time I ever, what do you call an all-encompassing suit? Body glove.
Yeah.
Body glove.
Yeah.
That's it. Fantastic. Nice one.
And going from
5 legs.
Yeah. Going from like 5 Kane books back to Eisenhorn was really fun, because I think the Kane books, I'm like, oh, these are a laugh, and I've got through loads of them like really, really quickly. Because I think I did Eisenhorn book 1 and 2, and I was like, I need a bit of a break before it's like Eisenhorn questioning whether he's a heretic or not, because it was all like book 2 was doing that, and then I read the synopsis of book 3 and the back page, and it was like, has he gone too far? And I was like, well, I've just had a book of that, so I'm going to have a bit of a break. And Kane is like, lol, Jurgen smells. And I dueled a Space Marine, I killed it. And this, that, and the other. And then all the detail that's in Eisenhorn. Like, such...
And especially book 3 is just not jolly in the slightest at all,
and
is
it is great. And it's just so funny going from like, oh yeah, this orc, and it really smelled. And then Eisenhorn is like, yes, I had this meal. And he's like, I had these vacuum-packed meats. And then it's never mentioned again. It's like watching The Room, where they just have all these random details. And then they never talk about them again. Like when she's like, I had the test results back. It's definitely cancer. Okay, we're not going to talk about that. And I'm getting so...
What's The Room? I don't even know The Room.
Oh, you don't know The Room?
No,
The Room is a sensational movie.
Okay.
And you absolutely have to watch it. It's from a guy called Tommy Wiseau. I don't know if that's a correct
I think that's how it's
pronunciation.
pronounced, yeah.
And it's essentially all based in The Room.
Okay.
And it's about a character that works at a bank. That's like his character development.
Yeah, I mean, The Room is very similar to my experience. So.
Yeah. And
it's awful.
It's amazing. It's a.
And what's it on Netflix or?
No, I don't know where you get it.
You can probably find it on YouTube or something like that. But like, there's so many like lines and quotes and offshoots of stories that they never come back to.
Okay.
There's just like a random cutaway clip where he goes into a shop and buys some flowers, and the lady behind the counter goes like, "You're my favorite customer." Like, it's just
never explains why.
Yeah. And like, it's a cult classic. It's like going to see like Rocky Horror. Like, if you go and see it in the cinema, like, don't go and watch it in the cinema, because people take spoons and throw them at the screen, and like it's just brilliant.
Okay.
I mean, it's brilliant in the sense of it's not brilliant. So don't go in expecting like Oscar
Right,
stuff.
Basically, a man with the Tommy Wiseau person has a lot of unexplained money in the real world, and just decided as an utter vanity project he was just going to make his own film
Okay.
that he'd written, and it's just like. It's just literally, and it's no one really knows where, because he's got a really bizarre accent. No one knows how old he is. No one knows where he's from. No one knows where he got his money from. And it's really, really odd. It's so weird that there is a movie
about the making
about the making of The Room.
It's. I think it is the definitive. It's so bad, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like watching.
I can dig those,
it's like watching Sharknado. Like. But I think like Sharknado knows what it is and
As
it
a
plays
plot
into
as well,
it.
maybe?
Yeah, whereas the Room doesn't. The man making The Room thinks he's making an Oscar winner.
Yes, yeah. And there's like really weird sex scenes in it, and it's anyway.
Yeah.
Mega sidetracks.
That's fine. Well, you got talking about decorating and banks, and I don't know if anyone else does this, right? If you've ever decorated, because you painted, we normally wallpaper, right? Maybe paint nowadays. Does anyone else, just for fun, write weird scribblings on the wall?
Yeah, I did that when I painted.
Because I even did a bank job. Wrote like the Derbyshire Lloyd's, like where all the security cameras were, what time it opens, what time it closes, where we think the vault is, how many people we need to do the job. Just coated it in wallpaper. So like 20 years from now, someone's going to strip that.
The one I liked was someone the other day. He said, "I don't think I'm planning on selling it, but I've done this just in case." And someone had built an Imperial Knight. And before they put the top plate on it, they put a note inside of it that you'd only find under these conditions. And he wrote on the note, "Please don't take me apart and just use me for scenery on your base." And then put it inside, they glued the top on. So he said, "I'm not planning on selling it, but just in case in the future someone goes, right, rip this to bits." It's going on there. Which I think is brilliant.
Amazing.
That's amazing. No, I didn't wallpaper because again, my dad voice, don't strip wallpaper, just paint over it.
Okay.
So I, with the paint, before I got the roller out, wrote poo-poo on the wall, and then just went over it.
We have to get someone in to decorate, because if we don't, generally, within about the first 3 to 4 hours, somebody will be calling a divorce lawyer. We just can't work together. We can't. So we just have to go.
Do you not do separate rooms?
No, we just go, let's be skint for a month and get a decorator to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Like less stress involved, definitely. I can see why people do it.
Yeah.
And I've only had to paint 3 rooms, 2 and a bit.
And also, you're encouraging someone else's job. Yeah,
Well, that's
so
why I
enjoy it.
try not to do DIY. Is when my wife goes, "You're going to do that," I go, "No, I'm going to get someone in, because I'm not stealing another man's job as the socialist that I am."
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Says me as
I'm
I
not
shave my son's hair at home going, "Hi, Jeff."
I'm like, decorate that room. No, because I'm not a scab.
So back to you, Jordan.
I just like the idea that perhaps you're going to be able to sort of refer back to stuff and talk about how long it took you to paint your house. But it's going to be, the unit of measurement will be Black Library novels.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's about a 10 Black Library novel job of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Imagine if you became a decorator and then
that's
people
how you
went,
quote.
"How long would you take you to do my landing and stairs?" I reckon I could get a God's Ghost sign of that. Sorry, what?
And then the customer's like, "Is that 3 episodes or 4?"
yeah. Yeah, that's it. Like I'm gonna have, like people have those moments where you're like, "Oh, I remember exactly where I was when I did this," and everything. And every time I walk into my spare room, I'm just gonna go body glove.
Just right on the wall. Yeah. Get it on there. Get it on there. So, back to you. Sorry, we sidetrack. We do that. It's what we're good at. It's our famous brand. So you've got a varied amount of content at the moment. You've got interviews. You've got a book club as well, haven't you?
Yeah, doing a book club with Stu from Miniature Realms.
Stu's
channel.
great. Yeah, because we met him at Warlord when we met you at Warlord.
Yeah, that's
actually.
right. Yeah, and we've just been reading each of those original GW books, so those 17 books from like 89 onwards, as they were released, the release order, one a month, and then talking about them with the Patreon group, and then talking about them in the book club that's on the channel. And because I'd never read any of them, so I've sort of been quite lax in the fiction side of my Warhammer hobby over the years. So getting to read it in the sort of context of, okay, so this was coming out at a time when nothing really existed, or not as much existed in terms of the sort of firm Warhammer Fantasy battle lore. Obviously, you had the third edition of Fantasy Battle, first edition of Fantasy Roleplay, but it was still really taking shape. So reading it as like, okay, it's not all set in stone at this point. People are just making random stuff up and exploring parts of the Warhammer world that you're never going to see again. And sort of that context has made it a really interesting experience.
Yeah. I can imagine.
I'm trying to sort of tease out, and same with 40k, of course. There's some 40k books in there. So we've not got to those yet.
Yeah.
But like the Ian Watson stuff, famously, a bit out there kind of stories. Before 40k as a world has sort of taken shape as what we'd recognise today. So you've got a lot of interesting ideas and, interesting language and all this sort of stuff in those books that it doesn't really resemble what is out there now. Some of it's made it through, but a lot of it's just gone.
And was this in the original, the 17 books?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So that's when it started, and then it sort of carried on post GW books, and then they've been reprinted, some of them, and they've updated some of them. So the Inquisition War trilogy, I think it's called now. So some of that is still around, but some of it was tweaked and changed, and they removed squats from it because squats were gone, but now squats are back, so they've put the squats back in.
Well, the Votan are back.
Squats are back for Commander.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. I'm probably sound like I've just got this super dry version of the hobby where I'm all about the business side of things, but that is a great example of just the creative decision has been made to remove squats because they don't exist anymore. So now we've changed the fabric of a story to reflect that, because we don't want people to think I can go and buy a squat, because you can't. And now squats have come back. They've reversed that, or a little bit before then. But so the sort of story and lore and fiction changes are happening because of what's being sold and how it's being sold.
See, I think that's sad with the squats, because when they got rid of them, they gave, albeit mildly, a flippant reason, didn't they? They went, their planet got at.
Yeah.
A high fleet ran through it.
Was it Behemoth?
Yep.
All right. Refer to our quiz earlier.
What we're going to do is we're going to release the quiz after this.
Refer to our quiz later.
But they gave her an excuse. So to me, if they go, there was a race called Squats, and they're gone. You know what I mean? They talk about the old ones. The old ones have been mentioned, but you've never been able to buy them. Well, you haven't been able to buy a model of one pretty much for ever and a day. So I don't mind. I think people can go, and they're not here anymore. I think being able to mention squats and I think it's fine, but I think it's because the fact it was never really written in stone in anything to say Squats planet got at, which I think is a bit of a shame.
I always thought it was quite an interesting thing to do as well, where you get all these fantasy tropes. Because you got Tolkien-based stuff, and you go, cool, it's doing well. We've got a fantasy system. It's all based off as you've discovered from your channel, role play. It's let's make war games out of role play stuff and get larger armies and just make big battles. And then you just go, let's just put those races in space. So beardy biker dwarfs. I'm all about that, and I was a bit sad when they went, because I quite like the squats as the style, and they're kind of a bit like that again, but not quite the same.
No, not as they don't lean into the biker.
I know, and I kind of miss that, especially like the big trikes and stuff. But I mean, I kind of get, I get why it makes sense.
You never know. It'd be nice to see, because now Squats and Votan aren't the same thing, and Votan are technologically leaning towards looking more advanced than the Squats. Well, obviously, now that they've got the ash wastes, it would be cool if they did the Squats a little bit more traditional motorbike with regard, because everything gets vehicles of some description, doesn't it? So I think it'd be nice if they sort of lean back into the original ones,
big old trike
through Necromunda.
But, sure, you could do it with the quads from the Orlocks and stuff. So it seems that background in sort of the lore kind of thing is your focus of a hobby, I suppose, because you were saying you're not into painting, which is fine, which I'm going to come to in a minute or two, actually. Is it because I working in retail, we used to get people that are only interested in the art books. There's people that are only interested in playing the games. There's only people that are interested in playing. There was a guy called Charles Whittaker. He used to come in every weekend, every weekday, and he would just literally talk to me about Eisenhorn and Gaunt's Ghost and like whatever Horus Heresy books. He was not interested in the games. He was not interested in painting, but he loved the lore. It's really nice to see that kind of dynamic spread out, and obviously you're really focused on like, that kind of side of it as well, which is great. But what made you want to do an army? How did that seem as it's not your strength, if you like?
Sure, yeah. So I decided earlier this year that I was going to do like a big Warhammer Fantasy army project, and I chose a Marienburg army. And yeah, I'm not entirely sure why I came to this sort of decision to do it as like a big project, but I think because it'd been a long time since I'd actually put together a proper army. So I've got a Tau army for 40k, I've got a Skaven army for Fantasy Age of Sigmar, and I've had them for years. And I've sort of nibbled around the edges and bought bits and bobs here and there.
Good reference there for Skaven as well, nibbled around the edges. I like it. Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, it'd been a while since I'd sort of done a brand new army from scratch. And I was really inspired by a couple of things I was coming across just in my sort of research and stuff. So one of the early regiments of renown for Warhammer Fantasy was Barda Gargoyles. So this is a sort of very early Warhammer history sorcerer in Marienburg who has summoned a load of demonic gargoyles, and they sort of run amok, cause all kinds of problems. It takes a week to get rid of them, and then the rest of the sort of council of the leaders of Marienburg decide, well, we've got to get rid of this Barda von Mickelstein guy because he's ridiculous. It's like summoning gargoyles everywhere. So they hanged him and got rid of him. But the wizards of Marienburg then learned how he summoned the gargoyles and then used them to defend the city.
Okay.
And that's the first ever mention of Marienburg in Warhammer lore.
Yeah.
And this obviously goes on to become this major part of the setting, or one of many, obviously, but a port city, big part of near the Empire and sort of bringing stuff into the Empire. It's not actually of the Empire now. But that was just that moment was just like, this is a really cool little story. That's, it's only like a paragraph long. That probably, I think it was Rick Priestley had written.
Yeah.
Just because they had a load of gargoyles and they were like, what's the story for these guys? And he name drops this city that had come from Richard Halliwell, who'd invented it and named it after his girlfriend, his then girlfriend. So it was named after Marienburg. And that just sort of inspired this, like, oh, well, that's cool. This was a cool, like, this, something that would go on to become this amazing major part of the setting started from just a one name drop in a tiny little story. So that kind of just got me thinking about Marienburg, and then I was doing some other stuff, and then I did a sort of making of Marienburg and looked at how the Marienburg city came to be more important in the lore, what supplements were done for fantasy roleplay and that sort of stuff. It just kind of snowballed from there. I got really inspired by this city and the lore of this city. And then I was like, oh, I guess I'll do an army then. But I thought it would be a fun project to document me buying and collecting the army, which is probably my strength, and then telling a story with it. So I've sort of been writing this fiction that goes alongside the army as well, giving everyone names and sort of coming up with all that sort of stuff, and then painting it as well. And I was hoping it would make me paint it more and make me paint it faster, because I'm not in the habit, and it's not a natural thing for me to sort of get the paints out and do it. It's worked a little bit. It's slow going, and I've been making slow progress. I've been sort of trying to commit myself to sort of setting out my paints in the evening, so that the next morning I've got to do an hour of painting. And I don't have to set everything up and that sort of. So I'm making some progress, but it's still pretty slow going. Yeah.
What made you go for coat d'arms?
So, well, this is sorry.
You can have that back, by the way. That's yours. That is your pot.
You don't want to keep it, I take it.
It's a good paint, but it took about 7 coats.
Right.
Your arm is going to take a while. I'm just going to put that out. First, you could have schemed.
And I might not commit. So this is Deadly Nightshade, which is it's a reformulation by Coat d'Arms of like an original or an old Citadel colour. And I just loved this. So I painted everything this colour when it was still around. Dark Elves and Skaven and Orcs or whatever. Everybody had Deadly Nightshade on them somewhere. And I was like, well, if I'm going to go retro, let's at least sort of get something that has a meaning for me.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is, it's reformulation of it. It must be good. It must be the thing. All right.
I think what they've done is they've gone with the same formulation from the old, because I found this really interesting, and this is why I think like it would be a good test to try different paints, because that is definitely classic Citadel paint, because it's by HMG, who made the original.
So this will be like the actual like. There's a direct line between the old and the nice and this.
Yeah.
So that's great in terms of the colour, because I think it's a lovely, like, dark blue, sort of almost purple kind of.
AKA Prussian blue will be the fine. After 7 coats, I was like, I'm just going to try this colour. It's the same. One coat wonder. So if you do struggle, there are alternatives.
So when I do struggle, okay.
It was interesting playing with it, and it's given me some thoughts about certain videos down the line that I'd like to try.
Okay.
But it was nice trying it. But I mean, there's nothing to say that Coat d'Arms paints are awful. It was just that was taking ages to mix, and its coverage wasn't what I expected. And I think I got spoilt with newer paints, new formulations. So it was just fascinating. I'm taking your word. Sorry, fascinating.
Someone messaged me on Instagram recently. They were like, "Oh, you didn't say fascinating at all in the most recent chat. Are you aware of it now?" And I was like, "Yeah, probably."
Yeah.
Even if it's subconsciously.
Yeah.
Oh, like back in the day used to be my thing. Back in the day.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting watching you do that and the build up to it. And obviously there'll be hopefully some painting at some point. But you got Stu to talk about colours and this. That,
yeah, he came on and helped me sort of work, because I didn't even know where to start and like how do you build a paint scheme in your head to know what you want to. Because I know for sure, because I don't have the skill to actually paint something realistically. So all the leather pouches that would be a brown colour, or the metals, or like doing things to represent what they're supposed to look like in real life if they were real. I don't think I can do that. So
I can't do that, so don't worry about it.
Well, but there's a sort of illusion of reality to it. Like it looks like it would make sense. Whereas I quite like, and where I've had, I think, my most success is kind of doing a little bit of an abstraction with the paint. So it's not like I'm not doing details, and it's kind of just almost like a monotone or sort of a duochrome or whatever the term would be, of like a couple of colours. So it kind of has hopefully a striking look on the table when you've got an entire army out. But if you look at an individual model, it's probably a bit boring.
That's army painting though.
Can I just point out that I had this whole problem over the last week. Way back in April when we went to Salute, I bought, because my cousin-in-law is a massive Master Universe fan. And at the shows, they were doing a limited edition Battle Cat and He-Man on a base. And he's not riding on the cat, he's just stood next to it. And I thought to myself, I'll paint that for Graham for Christmas. So I've had since April, and obviously now Christmas is around the corner. I went into Panic Stations and thought, got to do this, otherwise it'll just, if I don't give him it this Christmas, it'll just live in a box and it'll never see the light of day. And in my brain, I went, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to paint this as per the cartoon. I won't really highlight it. I'll just go for the blocks of colour, because I even went back and looked at frames of He-Man, and you think, they don't really highlight in cartoon like that. They just put the blocks of colour in. Yeah. And I thought, I'll do that. And then, then when you looked at the miniature, you realise you can't, because the miniature is too detailed, that if you tried to just do it in blocks of colour, it would look like you hadn't actually painted it properly. It was weird, because I just have my brain, I'm just going to go, that colour skin, no highlight, that colour hair, that colour loincloth. And then when I got the blooming thing out and started painting, I gone, you just can't. The details. And it's sort of, and someone, I showed it to someone who went, looks more aggressive than He-Man.
And
I went, that's because he looks detailed. Do you know what I mean? Because he had more of a grit, and his muscles will look more human-like as opposed to just drawn line variant. And I thought, isn't it weird? You have an idea of how you think reality versus this, and then you just realise that the model sometimes completely dictates what you can and can't get away with.
I think it's because it's 3D.
And yes,
because the cartoon's 2D. I bet you, if you paint in those block colours, right, and get like on a monitor, put like a bit of a backdrop of a He-Man cartoon, not with the characters, sometimes
but like the castle or something in the background.
Got Cringer, Battle Cat, and He-Man. Took a photo, it looked fine. Because you've now made a 3D thing 2D again.
Yeah,
it looks like a cartoon.
But that's a really great shout.
But because you're looking at it as a 3D thing, and that's how your body works and your mind works and whatever, it looks weird.
And it was also things I'd never really thought about, is that the Battle Cat's got one paw like that, like it's trying to swipe at something. And I actually thought, I've no idea what colour the pads are on the insides of the cats.
Yeah.
Because in the cartoon you don't really see it.
Yeah.
And I was trying to look for a frame, and I'm sitting there and I go, oh, it's just going to have to be some sort of pink.
Yeah.
Because I thought, I don't know, you know what I mean? And you realise that, again, that 3D image forces you to paint beyond what you want, either what your skill set or what you're prepared to do. And it forced me into having to paint this more than I wanted.
The most important question, Jeff. Did you
Yes.
make sure He-Man's skin was the correct colour of tea?
No, I had to paint him more. I wanted to. But the problem being is, again, I put that shade in, and then it looks like I've just base coated him.
Of course, yeah.
You know, and then I had to work him up so there was highlights on the pecs and on the abdominal muscles. But I was really desperately just wanted to do that. But because, you know, and that's a thing. So you're talking about of detail and whether you make something look realistic or don't. It's a really tough one to figure out.
Yeah, I'm not great at it. I did some Ogrins recently for Necromunda.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I used the Deadly Nightshade to do their skin. So I just did a Zenithal highlight, and then I did the Deadly Nightshade skin, and then I wrote into the sort of story for them that they worked on the outside of the hive at high altitude, like sort of low orbit around the planet. They were just a construction crew, and they'd been genetically modified so that they could survive in this like atmosphere or lack of atmosphere. And that's why they've got this really dark sort of blue, almost like dark elf kind of looking skin. Or drow, I guess it would be in D&D stuff. So that's how I like to do it. It's just total abstraction, simplest possible way of painting, and then explain it. To put it into the story. Yeah.
That's good. So you were building your army. I forget your character's name.
Ponsard Trudeau.
Ponsard Trudeau. So
It's a good name.
It is a good name. You're struggling. So you were showing I really like this. You were showing all the different units you're looking at building, and then you showed some things like, I want to make a general, but I don't know what to do. And I was like, oh, I'd love to kit bash you a general. And I did some kit bashing, showed you some photos, and like you had this idea of a musketeer. I still don't know if I've achieved it, so we'll find out. But I was like, I've got two models here. There's the test model, which I painted so he can be a hero, and then there's the musketeer-esque, but he's on foot. I don't have him on horseback, so he's walking with his troops, I'm afraid. I wanted to take some photos
like a White Scars captain.
Yes, like just like a White Scars captain. All his men have got horses, except this guy. So I have Ponsard Trudeau and some other random guy. So they are. I went a bit over the top with the feathers. I made him feel a bit of a peacock. This is my wife's jewellery box, but she doesn't need it, so you can keep it. All the bubble wrap in the world. So there is Ponsard Trudeau and Tronsard Pudo, his second in command. Don't know what you call him.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, because you wanted to do it, and you gave me a good brief, which is like, I've got some images, like musketeers, but clean shaven, a bit of a duelist. God, that was hard to do that. So normally,
Let's see then. Cool.
This is amazing.
with Empire, you have like really ruffled clothing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I end up using the Cities of Sigma, one of the Cities of Sigma figures, to do it. Whereas when I originally did the one which will come up on screen, the original one, he had a big Zweihander sort of blade. I think it might even be a Runefang that he's got there. But there's a really good helmet from the Pistoliers, or Free Guild Pistoliers, which is like a big sort of hat with like a floppy hat with loads of feathers on it. But Ponsard, I went with some greens in there, because the problem with Marienburg is they have to be blue, yellow and red. That's their colour scheme.
Yes.
And is there any symbology other than a mermaid? I could not find any other like something that was like Marienburg, like a certain style or design. It was like there's some crowns, there's some cross keys, but that seemed to be quite.
Yeah, I mean the mermaid's
common.
the sort of the crest of Marienburg. Isn't it? I think she's carrying like a bag of coins or something, because it's all like traders.
As much as I love the project, I wasn't painting that.
What an absolute pair of dandies they are.
These are amazing. These are amazing. Thank you so much.
I will not be offended if it's not your hero. You just use it
it's
as a
awesome.
random
Great
captain and
That's
stuff like
incredible.
Really cool, Peachy.
that. But yeah, that was Captain Test Model, the first one. And then we got Captain Test Model. That could be his name, Captain Test Model.
But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome.
There's a lid. So yeah, it was a bit of fun for me, because I watched the video. I was like, yeah, what would you use as a captain? And like, kit bashing sometimes is just a bit of fun, but trying to get the
yeah,
right.
I mean, I don't know what to say now. This is lovely. What a Christmas present this
Hey,
is.
yeah,
This is
Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
Merry
thank
Christmas.
you.
Ponsard Trudeau. I'll forget his name tomorrow. I kept going, is it Poniard? No, that's a dagger.
Yeah, I mean, so and because what I wanted to do for the army in my collection was, because I wanted to sort of tie it into the work I've been doing on the channel. So I've been looking for miniatures from all of Citadel history. So it has to be a Games Workshop release miniature. So Citadel, Marauder, any of that sort of stuff. But even if they've sort of redone lines, because they used to do Ralph miniatures and stuff like that in the early days. So I wanted the army on the tabletop to kind of, it's a bit grandiose, but to represent like the entire history of Citadel as well, and have sort of a miniature from different eras and different units and stuff. So even there's some Necromunda guys in there as well, some 40k stuff I'm trying to get in there. Age of Sigmar, I've got Griff Hound, because you know, and actually you found an amazing thing for me. I watched one of your streams when you were talking about the uniforms and heraldry of the Empire.
Yes, yeah.
I'd been looking to see if there was any evidence of Griff Hounds in Warhammer Fantasy.
Yeah.
And there's one in there.
Yeah, there's the captain of the Company of Honor, isn't it?
It's fantastic. Because I've got the book and I love that. That whole series is fantastic. I've not clocked it. And because I was trying to, again, I was sort of explaining, I was like, it's from the Imperial Zoo, so it's an exotic animal, this Griff Hound. Because I love that. I think one of the coolest things in Age of Sigmar, just good boys.
The annoying thing about that is because I made that regiment for the 8th edition Empire book. So I made the Company of Honor and I did the captain. I can't remember his name now. But the only thing you had, and I can't remember which kit it's off now, but it's like a little griffin, but it's got wings, whereas this thing I don't think has wings.
No.
So I kind of put that behind his base to try and like match it in and this, that, and the other. I've not based them. I also put them on smaller bases. I didn't know if you want them on larger bases.
No, these are
so you can always
great.
take them off the base and stuff. But I thought I won't base them because you obviously have your own style of basing and whatever. Probably be Goblin Green, I don't know, but yeah, those books are really good for like the heraldry books. I just wish they did more.
I wish they'd done more of those because they're so good.
Apparently
they're really, really
sell
good.
very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shame.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's Ponsard.
Thank you.
We have a selection of questions. We always chuck it out when we have a guest
Can I just
on.
ask a question?
Oh yeah, shoot. Yeah, well I've got to find this anyway.
What have you not covered yet? What have you got an avenue you haven't gone down yet that you're really circling and thinking about doing?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, and so I'm also conscious that it probably sounds like I'm just this mega GW fanboy and think every decision they've ever made is the best one ever. And that's not the case. I think they've made some interesting choices and things of... Yeah, absolutely. And if someone does feel that way, that's fine as well.
Massive Star Wars fan, but there's big chunks that if you gave me a rubber or a razor, I could go in and sort out. So, no, I don't think... nothing's beyond reproach.
Absolutely, exactly. So I think there's some stuff I want to explore in that, like where were decisions or what paths were not taken that I wish maybe had been. So... I think the Storm of Chaos, 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle global event they did basically walks the world to the brink of the end times, or what would become the end times. But it changed the status quo of the Warhammer Fantasy world. And then in 7th edition, and then definitely in 8th edition, it's just rolled back. So they just got rid of it. And then obviously did the end times, which similar events take place, but they do end the world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I want to explore that path not taken. So what would the Warhammer Fantasy world have been if they'd continued down the Storm of Chaos route? So they did Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd edition, which was set in that version of the Warhammer world, but then the next edition, that's all gone and stuff. So I want to explore that. And then obviously I've not delved too deeply into the 41st millennium, really. I've talked about Space Hulk and I've looked at some of that sort of stuff. I think in the same way that I've gone through the different editions of Warhammer Fantasy and what were the factors that led to the creation of this and how and why, I would love to do that for at least some of 40k.
Yeah.
That feels like it's going to be a really big job, because there's so much change in 40k as well, and so many additions now as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think I would cover everything, but I would like to explore, how do we get from Rogue Trader and the world that was 40k then to where we are with 10th edition and all that sort of stuff. Because just the seeing when stuff starts to sort of get set in stone is an interesting kind of journey in and of itself. Because none of this stuff was early on. Everything was up for grabs and it was all changing all the time. And not everything, but lots of stuff would change. And then at some point it was like, no, actually this is the formal canon.
And the thing is, there's a lot of in 40k at the early days. It was current world political satire, wasn't it? And then obviously, as with anything in the current world, it shifts around a little bit, and then they started to go, oh no, we'll leave that alone, or we'll take that one bit of satire, and now that's steady as a building block for stories, and it'll be, Yeah, so I think that's a good shout, actually, man.
I think it will. I'm hoping it'll be an interesting series. Yeah, if and when. But
who's the next guest you'd like to get on that you've not had on yet?
Well, I mean, I've got some good guests lined up, so I'm not sure when this is going to go out.
Yeah, you don't have to shout about it.
Well, I mean, so I've spoken to Rick Priestley, which is very exciting. Yeah, it was really good. And there's a few people who were involved in the Warhammer Fantasy side of things and how that evolved the Warhammer world. I would love to speak to some of the artists who helped to sort of define the look and feel of early Games Workshop stuff as well.
Who's your favourite artist? Who's your favourite sculptor then?
So,
because you're obviously, unlike me, I have like a 3 or 4 that I really like. Because your knowledge and your interest of it goes so far back to the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I love the Skaven, so I just they're my like true love in Warhammer. As much as I'm loving Marienburg and the Empire at the moment. Skaven, just these little, like, creepy, stinky, scumbag rat guys.
Yeah.
They're just fun. They're just great fun.
And very unique as well to workshop stuff.
So iconically workshop as well. So, yeah, I think Jez Goodwin is probably, I mean, it changes, of course. You know, you look at some new miniature or you'll come across something and be like, oh, this is my favourite now. But generally speaking, it probably is Jez Goodwin.
Yeah.
Because he's just done so much amazing
stuff.
He's
done a lot, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's a busy man. Cool. Oh, I bet you'd like to get him on the channel at some point.
I would love to, but no, he obviously...
All these people were just sitting on waiting to retire.
Like, come on, I need to get the painting phase and join Sorcery. I need to retire, hurry up. I imagine that's how it goes. I know it doesn't. I'm joking. Ali. Got some questions for you.
Sure.
There's a handful. So hopefully my phone won't die halfway through it. Matt Render. He's sent us some stuff as well. He does a lot of... they're over there. I'll grab them in a minute or two. Matt Render has something called Battle Try, where he gets modern-day soldiers but puts Stormtrooper or Clone Trooper helmets on them with all the tactical rigs. So there's a box, and there should be a cardboard tube. It was all on here, but it's been moved. Oh, the cardboard tube's over there. I'll grab it in a minute or two. Just chuck it over. I'll have a look in a minute. Be fine. Nice throw. We'll end with that. Matt Render, thank you, Matt. Love his interviews. Would love to know how he got into gaming. Keep up the great work on the channel as well. How did you get into gaming?
Well, thank you, Matt. I mean, it's. I think it was probably Warhammer Quest. It was the sort of when I became a real Games Workshop head, if you like. Yeah. But like, so my older brothers had Hero Quest and they had Space Crusade, and I loved those games. I would like to set them up. They didn't actually like playing them. So I sort of inherited them because they didn't use them at all. But no one would ever play with me. I was too young and didn't really understand it. So I just like to set up the boards, and especially Hero Quest because you had all of the furniture and stuff. So I would just make these little dungeons and kind of just play around. And that sort of inspired the love of, I think, fantasy for me. And that sort of, I was really in love with that kind of game. Didn't really understand how to play it until my mum took me into a Games Workshop before secondary school in the summer, and they were doing a demo game of Warhammer Quest, and I just fell in love with it. Just incredible, because it was that game that I would set up on the kitchen floor on my own, but now I was playing it with people and telling this fun story and going through the dungeon. I played I was the elf, and I fell down a pit trap, and you needed the rope in order to get... The dwarf had to use the rope to get you back out, but he'd already used the rope earlier on.
Oh, no.
So like halfway through the dungeon in this demo game, I was just left to languish at the bottom of the pit trap. And they all went off and completed the dungeon and got all the gold and the loot, and I'm just like, help. But even despite that, it was just like, this is great. I cannot wait to play again.
Yeah.
So I would say Quest is what got me into the hobby, and then Fantasy Battle from that. And eventually I moved over to 40k, and sort of got really into 40k for a time, and then I came back over to Warhammer Fantasy. But I mean, that's the Games Workshop side of it. I've always played, since I could, board games and then role-playing games and stuff like that as well. Because it's just great. I love telling stories, basically. So I don't play very seriously. I'm not very good with the rules when we actually play.
Yeah.
So it's more about like the scenario.
I was going to say, that sums up my experiences with gaming.
Yeah, Warhammer Quest is always one of those games is like the one that got away because at the time we'd got like things like Necromunda and stuff, and affording another game that we couldn't afford. But I really like that one the most, but never got around to getting it. By the time I was able to buy it, it's well out of production. So one day. Andrew is asking, there's 2 questions. Firstly, love the John Sorcery channel. Love the deep dives into more obscure parts of GW's history. 2 questions. What inspired you to start the channel? We know this. And part 2, which is, what Warhammer Fantasy Battle lore would you want to see expanded in the old world?
Well, yeah, it's a good question, Andrew. Yeah, and thank you. I think... So I would like to, I'm actually excited about the old world, the game, because it is going into a period of history that doesn't really have a lot of like definitive
Is
events.
this the Magnus the Pious era?
Yeah, so it's going to be before. It's going to be before the Great War Against Chaos, and it's going to take a look at like. I think it's that 25-year period before it.
Okay.
So there's a lot of scope where you've got the 3 emperors and the wars of succession that are happening within the empire, and there's no major events in the timeline, I think, that so they can sort of play around with it. And I think that's a good way to go. So you can insert loads of fun stuff, and as long as the sort of continuity then you diverge into all of this new lore and stuff, an invasion by the Tomb Kings or whatever it is, and then come back to whatever the status quo was just before.
Yeah.
I think that's fun. So I think that will be quite nice to get some more of that.
The only thing that just occurred to me is there's a lot of Empire kits that will probably come back that all have KF on them.
Oh yeah, there's going to have to be a load of fudging on that kind of stuff for sure. Yeah,
so, which is like Karl Franz, but at the time it's Magnus, not Karl Franz. Magnus.
Yeah.
What would Magnus? He's not just called Magnus the Pious, is he? He's got another full name, surely. But
I wonder what they'll do.
Like his regnal name. Yeah.
I wonder what they'll do with Rangers like that are now completely designed around Age of Sigmar now, but will they just rebase them? Like, for example, what I'm getting at is Lizard Men.
Yeah.
It'd be quite interesting to see what they'll do with them. Will they just go, you just use all the new range and you just put them on square bases, or will they bring out a Lizard Man box that will have old Lizard Men in it? And it'd be interesting to see how they approach that, because you think, surely you've now got enough founding to just be able to almost make a Lizard Man, make a Lizard Man old Hammer army out of Age of Sigmar. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with them races.
Certainly at the time they were designed to rank up, whereas now they're more like on circular basis.
They're so dramatic.
Yeah, exactly.
So it'd be interesting to see what
very interesting.
I mean, my assumption there is that's like with Cities of Sigmar and that new range.
Yeah.
To make it really Age of Sigmar-y.
Yeah.
So then that frees up the Empire stuff that was in Cities.
Yeah,
to now be
like,
Empire.
A bit like Horus Heresy and 40k is the Marines are kept distinctly different sizes, and the vehicles and trying to now make it as much as possible that the vehicles don't cross over and so on and so forth. Yeah, so it might be, but it'd be a bit weird if they then went back to the old, not that there's anything wrong with them, but really old like Lizard Men, and they've got these really beautiful, the Lizard Man range for Age of Sigmar, even though it's not my bag, is really good.
It's insanely good.
But I think that's why they've kind of left them out. I mean, even the Skaven, who I think are like quintessentially Warhammer Fantasy, have been left out of the old world's sort of setup.
For now.
For now. Yeah. But my suspicion for that, and same with Vampire Counts, is because they've got new, really nice Age of Sigmar ranges. Well, not the Skaven so much, but they're inherently Age of Sigmar now. So they're kind of like, well, we'll keep them over here for now until we redo those ranges and make the Sigmar-y versions.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah, they might.
And maybe in 5 years' time or something, they'll...
Well, I suppose to some degree, a lot of it is going to be, we've just got to wait and see whether this takes off as well.
Yeah, it might be a damp squib, as they say. Alex Svanberg, sounds like a place in the Empire. If you've ever been put in charge of the rule set for Old World, what would you have kept from older editions and what would you have jettisoned? Probably have one of each. Jettison one, keep one.
That's a tough question. Yeah. I'm quite liking what the sort of rules that are being drip fed out for the Old World so far. I quite like. I think they've been quite a good balance between a sort of 6th, 7th edition with some refinements and changes. What would I keep and drop? So I quite like rank bonuses. I'm
a big fan of that.
So I quite liked 8th edition of Warhammer Fantasy. There's there's plenty of flaws with it, and it's a particular version of the game. But I do quite like the big units.
Yeah.
I think they look impressive, and I think they kind of have a good presence on the table.
Because Horde wasn't, you had to have a facing of 10, didn't you? And then as soon as you have a facing of 10, and then you go like so many ranks, that becomes a Horde, and up to 4 ranks, so you still get your rank bonuses. And I like that. I mean, people were like, oh, it's a mechanic to sell more stuff, but I was like, but it looked cool.
Yeah, and it is
cool.
to probably was to sell more stuff. But yeah, it does have a real presence.
Yeah.
So I quite like the big units and the blocks, and that has a real Warhammer Fantasy vibe to me, which is probably why Warmaster at a smaller scale is actually a better way of playing Warhammer, because you can have the big, massive armies. But so I want to keep that kind of stuff and make sure that you can still get those benefits from having master ranks and that sort of vibe. I don't know what I would jettison.
I know what I would.
What would you jettison?
The old annoying, like when you used to do like the wheels and stuff like that.
Yeah,
they were so tedious. I had a friend in retail, and he'd get the unit like this, and he'd move it. I'm like, no, and I'd pull it back a bit. Yeah. And then do that. No, pull it back a bit. I'm like, oh, for God's sake, just move the bloody unit. Just charge. No, because it depends where I'm going to go and what angle I'm exposing. This, that, I'm like, oh my God, this is not snooker.
If you go back to second edition 40k, it was like that moving tanks. Wasn't it? It really was ridiculous.
I mean, I get side and rear, and even like not seventh. I suppose seventh still had it to a certain degree, but that was cool. Shooting the flank or the rear would have different effects on the tank, but sitting there for ages, like working how your unit's going to move and wheel.
Well, it was funny. That's why I decided I couldn't. I once went round to a friend's house who was saying we're meant to be playing 4-player Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Someone can't make it. I was on leave from the army. Do you want to come round? And I went yes. Went round and hated it. Because all of that was not for my bag. And then I ended up in Games Workshop shop with my friend, because he was a big collector of both. He was a big collector of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and when we were in there, they had a demo game for 3rd edition 40k, and I was still a servant soldier, and I went, what's that? And he went, because all I've seen is Empire versus whatever. He went, oh, that's the other one. It's the sci-fi one. And I was like, why aren't they on them tray things? He went, oh, you don't move them like that, because my mate was an ex-servant soldier as well. He went, no, he says they move more like we move. And I was like, can someone come over and demo this? And then I immediately went, oh yeah, I like that. That's I understand that.
I suppose it's a bit of it's almost like a naval war game, isn't it? With that turning.
Yeah.
So I know what I don't like, and it's because it's an abstraction. But it's when a front rank gets killed, and then no one else in the unit can attack, because you're like, oh, everyone died in the initial charge or whatever. Yeah. And I understand why that decision has been made, but what the guys in the second rank are just like
standing there, like
a gap in front of them, and they're just like, okay, I'll wait until next turn before I engage.
It's a swirling melee, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I prefer the idea that once you're engaged, you're all kind of just in this sort of melange of combat.
But am I right in thinking that,
especially if you've got spears in your second rank,
you go, I think you can with
spears. You can.
Yeah, but even with swords, I think that they don't stay as the regular blocks once they get into. In my head, they reform after doing the melee, and then they.
Total War is a great example of how that works, isn't it? It's just like it just becomes a mass.
Yeah.
A mess, a massy mess. Shoreless Skies, or Derek, I love your history of Warhammer. Can you please talk about your research and writing process? Well, as quickly as you can. I don't know how. That's probably like a video all in its own right, isn't it? Because
yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, I'm just trying to find out what information is out there. So are there interviews? Have you guys interviewed someone? Has someone else interviewed? There's lots of podcasts out there where people who were involved in the games have sort of had chats. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to start interviewing people was because I always found that there was a question missing that I had, would really help me. But I try and find all that sort of stuff. I try and reach out to people who are involved and see if they're up for sort of answering some questions, either over email or over a proper sort of Zoom interview, and then going back to all of the original material that's out there. So the games, the White Dwarves, the journals, whatever else was coming out, and just really trying to see if there's anything there. And then obviously Google's great as well. There's loads of people who have done better work than I am doing for years on blogs and websites. And and I try and make sure that I'm calling those people out and using them as a source as well, because I like to think that the reason they've documented it is because they want future historians, as it were, to be able to find the same information that they found. So I try and sort of bring that in as well. So it sometimes feels a bit like standing on the shoulder of giants, and the people who have done amazing work. So it's like the Awesome Lies blog has been doing this incredible, like academic level history of Warhammer Fantasy roleplay and how that developed over time. Fantastic read. If you're interested in Warhammer Fantasy roleplay and the Warhammer world in general and how it evolved, brilliant place to start. So stuff like that really helps as well. But you would be amazed how much stuff is in like White Dwarf. Early White Dwarf.
Yeah, just when you were talking about that when we last caught up, it was like, oh yeah, I suppose because they used to have so many interviews.
Incredible.
Nice, thank you. Christopher Venti, is your relaxed and soothing tone and voice from your videos natural, or is that a mask of deception and lies that you put on for the public? We all know from chatting before it started, he's a Cockney. It's all lies. It's all lies. Of course it's
talking such heavy rhyming slang, I couldn't understand what he says.
Yeah, we got so confused, didn't we? We were like, what is this? Who's this guy? No, it's real. Can't confirm.
I hope it's real. Yeah, I'd like to think it's real.
Soothing tone.
So I was going to ask, where are you from originally?
So I was born in Chester, but I was raised in Manchester. And then I spent some time down south as well. So, I think because I try and spend a lot of time on the scripts as well and sort of writing the script to make it into, because I really like it's a story as much as it's a history and factual. It's also a story of what happened. So I hope that then gives it the sort of
definitely
a nicer structure that's nicer to listen to. So
definitely got a timeline flow, I think.
Yeah, hopefully, and it a little bit of, dare I say, there's maybe a little bit of poetry in there, maybe, hopefully, in the just, trying to choose some nice words, basically.
Better than me. I can't do nice words. Just do simple ones. Gunwitch, where the actual hell do you find all those old classic books and minis, and how the frack do you, nice use of Games Workshop swear words, I like it. How the frack do you manage to afford them? I'm so jealous. Great bloody vids, though. Oh, you could have used a different word than bloody there, Gunwitch. You could have gone more 40k with that.
Who came up with frack first, GW or Battlestar Galactica?
I don't know.
Did they say frack in the original series?
I'm trying to remember.
What, in the original Battlestar?
Yeah.
No, only in the remake.
Yeah,
because
Feth is Tanith and frack, I think, was Verbenhive swear.
And Drock as if you Judge Dredd.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Drock.
But frack could just be general. I don't know. Yeah. Ray Bellion, Jordan Sorcery is such a great...
We didn't answer the question.
Oh, you did? No. We just talked about it. Yeah, where did you get your books from, Jordan?
I mean, some of it, so like I say, I've been a collector for a long time. So there was a point in time when I sort of swore off the hobby briefly. I call it the age of strife, when I was out of the hobby. And I kind of got rid of everything, or most stuff. And I really regretted it. So then I started sort of rebuying and sort of recollecting stuff over time. So it's multiple decades of just getting stuff and clinging on to stuff. And nowadays, obviously, there's been this incredible boom in the market. So it's kind of almost become like a speculator's market for secondhand GW stuff. So some of it's just getting lucky and finding bargains here and there. Some of it is, okay, actually, I'm going to have to pay a bit more for this. But it's an investment as well, I think. Not that I want to be so sort of cynical about it, but some of the stuff that gives me joy now might not in the future, and because there is that market, it's sort of trading on that as well. So but a lot of it's just searching stuff out and getting lucky.
Yeah, I feel a bit sort of silly passing stuff on to like nieces and nephews and going, oh, I should have kept that book now, or I should have kept that model. Never mind.
But the joy that you've given on, you've passed on that joy to someone else.
You make your choices at the time, don't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, certainly there's like an era of books I'm just like, they didn't feel very valuable. And it didn't get a lot of like love, a certain era of, and I was just like, I'll just pass them to like Liz's friend at school or whatever who's into it and whatever. And then now I'm just like, should have kept him. But yeah, not that bothered. Cool, thank you. Ray Bellion, Jordan Sorcery is such a great channel. There you go. How do you manage to get so many GW veterans on your channel? Which would be the hero from any Warhammer Quest game you would like to interview the most? Ooh, that's a lot of questions there, Ray. So how do you get so many GW veterans on your channel? I guess you ask.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. So many of these people are just so generous.
Yeah.
And are willing to come and have a conversation and talk about some stuff. I think some people enjoy reliving past glories and sort of telling those stories. So it's been a case of just reaching out to people. I don't have any special connections really into the industry or anything like that. I've never worked for Games Workshop. So I've just reached out to people and tried to be polite and just see if they want to come on and chat. Yeah.
It's done you well.
Yeah, and like I say, it's only because people are so nice and have just been willing to do it.
Would the Warhammer Quest hero you interview be the elf, and why did he fall down that trap?
It would be the dwarf, and it would be why did you not bring 2 ropes? Unreal.
Offbeat build. Do you have any bucket list miniatures or games from the deep dark past that you'd love to have but can't justify selling a kidney to fund?
Yeah, I mean, loads. Absolutely loads. I mean, a lot of it tends to be supplements and stuff that I missed over the years. Terror in the Dark was the one supplement they did for Advanced Hero Quest. And that Advanced Hero Quest has been in and out of my collection many times over the years. I currently do have a copy. I've never owned Terror in the Dark. It doesn't come with miniatures or anything. It's extra templates, it's extra rules and scenario stuff and dungeon tiles. I think that is something that at some point I will want to own, but it goes for unreal amounts of money on eBay these days. And it has for a long time. So I think that's probably one of them, I would say.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. Yeah, there's a lot of asking the same stuff, really, we've already covered. Andrew Marrington, love Jordan Sorcery. I know he loves Warhammer Quest. So here's a question. If you were able to decide the setting for the next Warhammer Quest box set, what would it be?
Wow, that's a great question. Yeah, I do love a Warhammer Quest, and so I enjoyed Cursed City as it was, and I like the setting of Ulfan Khan. I think they do some fun stuff there. I don't think the game was perfect. It sort of didn't quite work. So I quite like the idea of transplanting that back into the old world. Yeah,
it could generally be anywhere.
It absolutely could, and you could put it into Prague in Kislev, before it sort of falls. There's history of vampires there, so you could do that, or you could even put it. You could go to like, can I try to pronounce it? Musilion in Britannia before that sort of falls. So there's old world settings you could do for that. But I must admit that I really like Blackstone Fortress, and I think as a setting, it's just a really cool way of doing Quest in 40k. Yeah. Because you get to, it's the fringes of the world, so you can have Xenos and Imperium guys working together, and you can do all of these old retro, like the Amble and Imperial robots. So you can bring all that sort of stuff. So I think there's probably a cool 40k setting. My friend.
I was going to say, I loved all the sort of like almost AI side of the Blackstone Fortress. It had, not only was the chaos there, but there was like all the weird sort of things that were going on. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, my friend Rob
never played it, and it kicks me that I've
got the box set. We'll have to do it as for the channel on top of all the other things we promised to play.
It's well worth it. It's a really fun version of Quest, and it uses the 40k universe really well, I think.
Cool. Yeah, the minis in it are awesome.
They are really some really nice minis.
Gorgeous stuff. Yeah, really nice. But a friend of mine called Rob who sort of was like, well, I would do it if I was going to do a 40k quest in the Webway. So like in the Eldar Webway. I mean, you could even do the Black Library.
Yes, yeah.
And so I can't take credit for the idea, but I just think that's really cool. I think that's a really neat idea. So it's all Eldar stuff. It's all unknowable because it's still within the in the warp and in the Webway, so you could have a Chaos Incursion in there or something like that. And I think there's a lot of cool stories you could tell and a lot of weird old 40k stuff that's just been lost in there for millennia. So, I think
also
cool.
You could incorporate like certain characters. Like I'm sure I don't think Eisenhorn has, but there's definitely been some like Inquisitors that have journeyed to the Black Library to get like some Demon Grimoire or whatever, some information because they've got like contacts with the Eldar.
Yeah, because it would. If you think about the cool stuff in Blackstone Fortress with like the spindle drones and then the massive one, like that's cool. That the fortress itself is trying to get at you. And that was cool in Silver Tower, where the Silver Tower is like doing stuff. There's the dungeon that reacts to your presence. And I can only imagine that the Eldari would have similar weird stuff going on that repels you. Yeah, so I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, good. Disco's Inch, friend of the show, Michael, hi. Contender for second best coif in the business. Jeff will always be number one.
Thank you very much.
Beyond GW-based creators and lore, what other companies, creators and or IPs would you be interested in expanding or interviewing? Algorithm notwithstanding.
So I've done a couple of role-playing games that meant a lot to me. So I did Dragonlance 5th Age, which was a D&D attempt to do something very different. So it's basically taking D&D, which at the time was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and doing a card-based system instead of dice-based.
Yeah.
That was a super interesting sort of bold effort that didn't work out. And then Dark Matter, which was another RPG that Wizards of the Coast did, which was kind of like the X-Files, if you were just going to do a sort of contemporary X-Files game. So I think there's more stuff in that kind of space. So there's more D&D stuff. I love Planescape and that world. And, and looking at some of the other sort of histories of what TSR were producing that I think would be quite interesting to explore.
Because also, I suppose that's got a similar history to Workshop, hasn't it? And like, you know, the divergent paths. One maintained miniature war game, one carried on with like the D&D side of things.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And there's a lot of crossover there because obviously there was that relationship with early Games Workshop. It was, you know, Games Workshop was built on Dungeons and Dragons because they imported it. They had the exclusive license. It was taking off massively. That allowed Steve Jackson and Ian Livingston to create the company that they did. And then move into their own games, and then obviously Citadel and so on. So you've kind of got a really interesting shared history. There's like TSR UK, where they started producing stuff over here once the exclusive deal ended, and TSR were like, well, we're going to have to produce our own stuff in the UK then. That didn't work out for them, but a load of the people who worked there, when it went under, moved across to Games Workshop and started working on Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. And really built a lot of what the fantasy lore would be. So I think there's an interesting sort of parallel story of TSR, not just in the UK, but like TSR's development and Dungeons and Dragons development alongside Warhammer, and how did they sort of evolve in different directions to where they are now, still being the sort of market leaders in their respective fields. So yeah, probably something in that, I suppose.
Have you ever, I know I've mentioned this before on the channel, have you ever watched the documentary from Amazon? I think it's called Beyond D&D, The Art of...
Yes, yeah.
Literally, if you watch that reminds me so much of the studio when I was working at the studio, and a few people that worked at the studio, it reminded the times before I got there. It's such a parallel to Workshop, especially like things when they talk about, we had some... person started archiving the art, and then we found out loads of the art had been thrown out, and they had like all these skips, and like it wasn't until the third skipful that a builder came along going, oh, do you want to keep this stuff? And obviously 3 skipfuls of art, actually, because they were trying to archive it, all been binned and destroyed. And I was like, yeah, that sounds familiar.
There's a documentary about 2000 AD and called Future Shock, and they had a leak in the building. Have you seen this documentary?
I've not, but
they had a leak in the building, and one of the artists had to go down into the basement to do something, and they'd just been using the pages of art to blot up the water.
I mean, so much of this history is gone. I mean, it's like the BBC and their Doctor Who archives, right? So much of it was lost because well, who's going to watch this again?
Get recorded over with other stuff.
Yeah, they reused all the tapes and whatever it was.
I remember there was a fire at Aardman Animations, like Wallace and Gromit. All their original stuff's gone. That was quite a few years ago now, but
they're using the art for because even artists now, when they like do commission work, they're so disrespected for what they do, because like, can you not just do it for free? Because I'm just helping you out, building your portfolio. It's like no one values art until they've got a piece of art, or there's like box cover for a movie or a computer game. They only care about it then. When you're actually having to pay for art, it's not valuable. When people see it around, it's just like, it's just a bit of rubbish, isn't it? Just a bit of ink. It's just colouring in.
Yeah,
it's colouring in.
It's really
I hate that.
Not to plug my own work here, but I'm working on like a fantasy battle scenario. Ooh. So like just for fun, because I wanted to just write something that was kind of like the campaign boxes that I used to really like. So I commissioned some art for that as well, and it's a fun thing to do, and to see this real art that's created based on your brief, and it's just really, really good. And I just think there's so many great artists out there. It's kind of, and we probably don't have time to get into the AI art discussion and where that goes, but like that's a fear for me, is that we lose something really special because we go down that route. And I'm with you. I think that art's really valuable, and we should value the artists and credit them, and you know.
No, agreed. Andrew Gibson, what's the best book series for beginners? You got any thoughts?
You know what? I'm probably not the best person to ask on that one, because like I say, I've not read as much of the Games Workshop fiction as I would like to have. So I'm just now getting into Conrad. So that was one of the old fantasy trilogies. I don't know that. I think at the time it was probably not bad. I don't think now you would want to start there. I mean, everyone says Eisenhorn is probably the best start for 40k, right? So I don't think I'd argue with the common consensus on it. But once I've read all of them, I will come back and tell you.
Yes, great answer. I like that.
I think the thing that I think Eisenhorn does well, isn't it? It doesn't swamp you with races. It keeps races to
introduces it over time, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because they chat to like one Eldar in book 3 a little bit, and I think that's about it, really. Isn't it?
They
Quite
don't
a lot
really.
of it's
The main alien race
human
that's in the first book doesn't even have a model range.
No.
So I think that thing of just only introducing it as and when you really need to within Eisenhorn, I think really works well for it, doesn't it? I think.
Plus, you get a comprehensive understanding of the most important thing in the 41st millennium, which is body gloves.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and the variety of colours that they come in.
Well, no, I think I'll put you in good standing for the
That's what we were all wearing underneath our outfits.
Keeps life in you in this weather.
And like, I think it was from chatting to Ian. He said he had Arbeiterin, and he has a book club and that kind of stuff.
Body glove then. I don't know why.
And
Possibly does. It's whatever he wears under his clothes, his own business.
Yeah. And like you said, like earlier with the business decisions and this, that, and the other, that Eisenhorn was released to publicise the Inquisitor
game.
Yeah. And how that game is dead and gone.
Yeah.
And Eisenhorn is touted as like, the beginning of like the big black library, and this is how you get into 40k, and this book's amazing. And it was like, it was designed to promote a game that doesn't exist anymore.
Died out within 2 or 3 years.
It wasn't long, was it? It was out for started getting into the
really sad thing was as it died, some of the nicest miniatures were produced that they didn't. The one that you'll remember, they made and they showed it. Talking about, as you were saying, Jordan, about projects that were talked about in advance and then never happened, is they did the sniper assassin Vindica.
Yeah.
Did a Vindica assassin Inquisitor scale model and showed him to everyone, and then went struggling on getting this to cut up in a mold. It's just not working. It just never happened.
Yeah.
But it showed it to everyone as well, and he was like,
this is what you could have won.
Yeah, absolutely right.
There's a few. I mean, Forge World have got a few of those kind of miniatures they showed off in open days that just never made it. And I think there's some cool stuff there that would have been nice to see.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if it's like, they don't think it's going to sell, or it just doesn't, like you say, just doesn't work from a molding point of view.
Cut it up well.
Which is a shame. I do like how they introduced some of the characters into 40k now, because you've got Brother Artemis, who's the Death Watch guy. He was a plastic figure.
He was.
And then you got obviously Eisenhorn, but then there was what was the Sister Battle Army set, which is now like the Start Collecting set. One of the I think it's that, or it might be the Archoflagellant set itself. One of them you can make as Damien, 4528 or whatever. I forget his name. Someone can correct it in the comments. And then you got Sergeant Stone, which is with the new Inquisitor Warbands.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a whole bunch that they're just slowly but surely making figures of, which I really like. I think that's you could probably end up doing Inquisitor using the enough figures that are out there. Ruby from Roll One to Explode. She's on the Twitches. She's got a question. She's got multiples. One's already been answered. What piece of really weird lore is your favourite? Do you have any really weird bits of lore that are your favourite?
Yeah, I'm not sure I do now. I mean, I've told the Bada Gargoyles, which is my favourite bit of lore at the moment.
Anything weird and strange. 'Cause I mean, Suggs does all the weird sort of iceberg things. I'm like, what is that?
I don't know. No, I'm stumped now. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I mean, the other part of this is, can you rearrange Peach's paints for me while you're there, please? So I went to RAF Lakenheath on Saturday, and they realised that I liked my paints in set colours. Because I know where everything is, it saves on time. You know, a couple of seconds here, but across like many projects, that's minutes. Could add up to hours. They just moved them all around. Absolute bastards. The US Air Force are. You know you are.
What do you think I've been doing to that AK case whilst you were looking?
No. I mean, it's a bit mixed up anyway, isn't it?
It's in perfect order.
Yeah, sure. Spen's painting. What aspect of Warhammer Fantasy Battle coming back is Jordan most excited for? And also, which faction in Warhammer Fantasy Battle would make the best cheese?
It's always a cheese question.
It's got to be a cheese question.
So it's the story is the thing I'm most excited about. Because as sad as I was about the end of the Warhammer Fantasy universe, we can still play all 8 editions that there were before. You just get your friends together and have a game.
Yeah.
So even if I don't enjoy the rules or this version of the game, there being a current sort of Warhammer Fantasy thing, and there's new stories coming out, and people are talking about it and getting involved in it and enjoying it. That's something I'm really excited about. Just the sort of the community and the storytelling aspect. So that's the thing that sort of really got me quite hyped, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that a lot. In terms of the
cheese faction.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this, and because I think there should be another Chaos God called Fromage.
Yeah.
I think that's the real ruinous power. Certainly in this world.
Is he always thrown into the fray as well? I don't know why. Sorry.
But I find that cheese is the ruinous power on our Earth.
Yeah.
So because I just love it too much. So I think it's probably going to be one of the Chaos factions, and I feel like it might be Skaven.
I was going to say, if there is a cheese god, do you reckon that's why the Skaven have all the gnaw holes and they're trying to find the god? Just trying to get to him, like, come on, he's down here somewhere. I just can't find him. Maybe the centre of the old world is cheese.
Yeah.
Or maybe Morslieb and Morslieb is made of green cheese. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm not saying I would want to eat it, but I feel like Skaven probably do make the best cheese.
Yeah. And last question from Max. What kind of wizard are you? If not, what wizard would you be? There you go.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess a sorcerer of some description.
Yeah.
I quite like, I'm not sure why, but like the demonologists feel cool. I know there's a lot of, you can make a deal and lose your soul there.
Yeah.
And maybe make a few accidents. But I think that if I can do it right, I can make the deal and not lose my soul.
See, I've always got the vibe that you're the kind of guy that Buffy would go to for advice.
Sure, but you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, that does sound cool. I'd happily. Yeah, that would be great.
You open your grimoire and you're just like, yeah, I've got it sorted. What did you say? Vampires with 3 eyes? Okay. Give me that.
Yeah, but like any good sort of watcher, like Giles, you need to have had a little bit of darkness in your past as well.
Yeah.
Because you maybe strayed too close to the dark powers at some point.
Yeah.
But you came back and you came good.
Yeah.
And then you can use that knowledge.
Help people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sounds right. Yeah, that sounds all right. Former demonologist.
Former demonologist. I'm going to skip over there and grab a roll in a second, but I've got a question for you. What is your favourite edition of Warhammer?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot, Peachy.
Just quickly disappear.
Going to get in trouble now. Yeah, he just dropped the grenade and runs off.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold this.
So I like, for different reasons, I kind of like most of the editions a lot. And at the moment, I'm really enjoying the rules for 7th edition, but the army books for 6th, and a lot of the stuff for 6th edition. So that kind of like mixture. I've got more time for a lot of the other editions than I think some people have. Understandably, I think 8th edition isn't that loved, but I do quite like it. I've got a lot of affection for it. Yeah. But I think probably, like, if I could only have one version of the game in my life, it would have to be the one I started with, which was 4th edition. So even though it's not necessarily the best, or I would want to play all the time now, it means the most to me, probably.
Is that one with the Bretonians and the...
No, that was 5th edition. So it's the Goblins and High Elves.
That was always one I started on, but yes, I probably played a few games the prior.
Yeah. Yeah, the one the most... Literally, physically, the most dangerous edition of the game, because those spears will just... if you touch them, you're just going to have them all sticking out of your arms, your feet, your legs.
I've said many a times that they were really
unreal,
spiky.
Absolutely unreal.
Do you know what I find interesting about Warhammer Fantasy Battle in its editions compared to 40k? Is that you don't always just get Bretonians versus somebody like you do with Space Marines. It's always Space Marines versus a changing role of bad guys, but fantasy wasn't, was it?
No,
you know,
it was
like
different
goblins versus high elves, or this versus that. And you go
Empire versus orcs. What was the dwarfs versus goblins? Night goblins with all their pointy little hats and stuff.
So
they've never had the same. Yeah.
Whereas you know, it's always Space Marines, isn't it?
Yeah, and the sort of received wisdom is like, well, that's part of the problem, right? And that's why Warhammer didn't sell as well, was because you don't have a poster faction like the Space Marines and now the Stormcast. And you kind of, it feels like, oh, well, maybe it's going to be humans and the Empire might be a good one. But Alan Merritt was saying that they didn't really sell that well, the Empire, despite being one of the best ranges, I think, over the years. So it's kind of odd that they didn't find that over all of those editions. But maybe because there's just, I mean, who do you choose in the old fantasy world?
Certainly from Retail Derby and the few stores I've served in, worked in, orcs and greenskins always seem to be the most popular, that went through the till the most, I think.
Sure. I can believe that. There's a lot of character to it. They're fun, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because I think, like, if I play D&D, I think, like, a human fighter is probably, like the generic character choice. Like, you're like, oh, I want to be this high elf. Like, there's so much choice that to be a human is almost like the boring option. Like, and you can have, like in the campaigns that we've done, like, human fighters are some of the, like, really, really fun characters, but you're like, oh, I want to be this massive orc instead. Yeah.
That's what I love about, like, move that way too far. That's what I love about like Warhammer is something out there for everyone. I've always been like, I love being the human element. I don't want to be the Space Marine. I don't want to be the superhuman in 40k. I want to be like the guardsman who's a bit naff. Yeah. And it's the same for like fantasy. I always want to be the Empire trooper who's got like a little halberd shaking his hands as like an 8 foot like orc's like, but it's not him on his own that can deal with that. It's the rest of his 50 buds with their halberds as well. I think, for me, it's always been the human element. But other people just like greenskins or big power armored dudes or chaos or whatever. It's fascinating. Fascinating. Got it in twice. So before we move on to the end and all that, so Matt Render mentioned earlier. I always forget Matt's actual real name. He's called Matt Render on Instagram because he renders art. To make sense, I guess. He's illustrated The Wrong Wolf, which is a book coming out. Christian Craighead, SAS guy, Obi-Wan Nairobi, as he's known.
Oh yeah.
That guy.
That guy. So he did he wasn't allowed to sell his story about doing that, so he ended up making a children's story instead, and Matt's illustrated it. But he's a fan of the show, and he's one of our patrons.
A children's story about taking a hotel back.
Yeah.
So we have a load of modern day stormtroopers. He's given us a whole bunch of arts. This is
they've got like night vision goggles and
night vision goggles. So we've got a couple. So I'm going to scoot through a few of them. Oh my god, we've got some orcs there as well. We've got some Daka boys. Battle Tribe seems to be the thing where people like, get their miniatures or like stickers and stick them on stuff.
That's very cool as well, isn't it?
So that orcs.
He likes his NVGs. There's a few of them wearing them there, isn't he? Yeah.
Jacko with his. I was going to say it's an M60, but it's not, is it? It's like
it's very M60s.
Yeah. It's a shooter.
That's like classic front cover.
Oh, I like that.
That was great.
Amazing.
That's second edition. Almost turns into graffiti art there. It's excellent.
Oh, and then some clones shooting some clankers.
Oh, fun.
The front one there in the classic cool rifle position.
Yeah.
Oh, they're ace, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're really cool.
He is retired now, but he used to do a lot of art for New York Police Department, so forensic artist.
Oh, wow.
And we've got a load of stickers and stuff. Battle Tribe.
Oh, it's extraordinarily kind of him.
So is that like a Mr. Man? Like the blue...
It does look like a Mr. Man.
It is a Mr. Man.
It's Mr. Gung Ho, I think.
It's Mr. It looks like Mr. Bump, but he decided to armour up.
Mr. Bump. I love that. Like, sort of... I don't know what's the guy from Mad Max called Fury Road.
Oh,
Looks a bit like that.
oh yeah,
Immortan Joe.
Immortan Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got loads of stickers, so I can get some of these on my.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, that's so Death Dealer. If you know your Frank Frazetta,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
Death Dealer kind of vibe.
Oh, and then there's the all the
Obi-Wan, look at that.
Oh, Obi-Wan Nairobi, yeah.
Obi-Wan. And then, yes, loads of stickers.
Oh, look at that! The biker scout with NVGs on as well.
More orcs. So, some of the guys
Crikey.
have already got. I like this guy.
What a cool haul.
Yeah. So he just sent a load of stuff through. You'll like this next one I've got. He's pretty cool.
Oh, that's it's like siphon
Splinter
filter.
Cell.
Yeah.
And then,
thing, yeah.
and then what everyone wants on their car.
Snake
Snake.
Plissken.
And then we've also got some miniatures of. Oh my god! Even more stickers. Holy smokes!
Good lord.
And the miniatures are from Austin Miniatures. So I just thought I'd throw them in. Sorry, Jordan. Loads of cards as well from Austin Miniatures, but they are the models of stormtroopers, stroke clone troopers with night vision goggles.
Let's have a look.
There we are. My own impression again.
There we go.
Sorry,
Doug.
Belle.
So thank you very much, Matt, for sending those through. Oh, we got a letter to read. I'll read this out. Matthew Klein, Render is his middle name. Dear Peachy and the Painting Phase crew, absolutely love the show. My Monday painting show I watch and hobby too. A complete pleasure to watch. Love all the great guests and content. Keep up the great work. In this package are some cool resin Battle Tribe troopers and an awesome Obi-Wan Nairobi miniature, courtesy to my good friend over at Austin Miniatures. Also some Battle Tribe stickers and art prints that I did. I retired last year from the New York Police Department as a detective sketch artist. So I thought you'd dig in a New York Police Department patch. Enjoy and all the best. Can't wait for the to see what you guys do next. All the best, Matthew Render Klein. Thank you so much, Matthew, for sending those through. Good shout out. Go and check him out on Instagram as Matt Render as well, because he does lots of art. And you've just seen all the art. It's amazing.
They're so sweet. They're really cool.
And I've got the wrong wolf coming through for Charlie to read as well. So
Excellent.
SAS Wolves. That's what you need in the world. SAS
All
Wolves.
day long.
From what I've not read it yet, but from what I understand, it's like a wolf that doesn't quite understand it's a wolf and just protects sheep. So it does the opposite of. I could be wrong, but I've not read it. But that's the general gist.
A wolf that goes into a shopping centre and
takes off,
clears it out.
Clears it out.
Yeah.
What did you ever hear about that story? There was a hotel complex, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was a
in
hotel
Nairobi.
complex, yeah.
And because Christian Craighead, and obviously I know he wanted to come clean about it because so many people were like pretending to be him and getting like free drinks in bars and stuff. But I saw it happening on the news, and no one knew who he was. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's this special forces, this special forces." Always wearing pink. He's got a pink top, and it was like I think it was grey. It was just the light and all the
He
photography.
was just in a shirt. He was just out and about, wasn't
But for me, what it encompasses is not only how good the special forces are, but also you are teaching people what you are trained to do. And because he at the time he was teaching, is it the Kenyan?
he was teaching. Yeah, he was over there. He was over there in an instructor role for their equivalent of special forces.
So talk about leading by example, because he was on like a refreshment run or getting like some drinks or bits or whatever, and then it happened and he just had all his gear in the back, so he just went in going, "You lot stay out here, I'm going in." I was just like, blooming heck. So imagine the next day he was just like, "Right, did you learn?" Because you can imagine like people going, "Oh, he says he's the SAS, oh yeah, sure, we'll do the theory," and then the next day like, "Right, we're listening." You definitely know what you're doing.
I like the idea that he just had his rifle in the boot of his car.
Yeah, well, why not? If you can, but these are great. I can't wait to paint these guys up. Because I recently painted up some stuff for Spectre Miniatures, and they were really good fun doing moderns. So doing some moderns with Stormtrooper heads, I'm all about that. Absolutely, yeah. So
I like the fact that he's blatantly dressed not for going in to do that.
Is it jeans and a t-shirt?
Wow,
Yeah. Just had his gear in the back of the car. Just went.
So one thing that was quite interesting and terrifying, actually, there's an interview with a lady that gets rescued. I think she's American. She's talking to the embassy at the time because they have like emergency numbers and stuff, which is in the hotel room. And it's all kicking off outside, and they're like advising, don't look out the window because we don't want the terrorists to know if they can see you in this, that, and the other. And one of the things they tell you to do is take your card out of the reader. You put your card in to get the electrics on, the lights on, because they can read that downstairs if who's in their rooms, so they know which rooms are occupied, so they can just go to those rooms.
Yeah.
Because they know they're occupied. So the information was like, take your card out, otherwise they'll know you're in there.
Right.
Which is just like, I would never have thought of that
No.
as a thing. Such a simple mechanic. So yeah.
Cool.
Anyway,
Okay.
back on to
But
more.
yeah, Warhammer
there he
Fantasy
is.
is
We'll have to
fun.
look at him in a minute. Obi-Wan Nairobi. But Warhammer, yay!
Yeah.
We love Warhammer. Thank you so much, Jordan, for coming on, and thank you for just doing the quiz earlier or the quiz next, whichever.
Well,
Don't worry
thank you
what
for
round you're watching it.
having me. It's been great fun. Yeah. And thank you for Pons Archery Day.
Ponsar Trudeau. I'll get some photos before you go, so we can
Yeah.
stick them over because we try and get some images.
Yeah, it's been
on
great
the
fun.
screen. Yeah, good. Well, yeah, good quiz. Good quiz.
It
If
was.
you-
It was good fun. Thank
If you're
you
not
very
watched the
much.
quiz, watch the quiz because just watch his stress.
Well, watch it because you put loads of effort in.
You put loads of effort in, especially the middle questions, which we ran out of real quick. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next show.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Tula pips.
Bye.
Bye, Bella. You saying bye? You waking up for byes? Bye. She's
Hello?
off. She's off. Thank you so much.
Hello.
That's good. Thank you. Was that all right?
That was great. I mean, everyone does that.
Hello.
It's normal. Everyone's like, is that all right? Is that all right? You sure it's okay? Yeah, you did fine.
How can I help you?